Inside the Triangle, the Decker Truckline Podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Inside the Triangle. I am your host, Darren Ladley, and today we have a guest, Ashley Pettis.
Yep.
Is that correct? Wow. Hey, I got one right for a change, Katie. She's proud. And we are going to talk Geotab. So Ashley, as she just stated to me, has been on the project since day one, from the ground up all the way to implementation, and still working through, how many trucks, where are we at now percentage-wise?
About 300.
300 out of the 7, so we're probably, it puts us about 40% somewhere in that area.
Yep.
What's our goal of when to be done?
We're shooting for end of April.
Okay.
That's the goal.
We will have it done by the end of April, guys. Okay. So Geotab, give us an outlay. What is Geotab? How does it work?
So Geotab is an ELD system, a lot different from OmniTrax in its functionality. To me, it's user-friendly.
Well, like I tell all drivers, and Katie's heard me say this, is it's something new. And they are reluctant to try anything new. And once they get to it and they get using it, it will get better, correct?
Oh, yeah. It's to me, like I said, it is user-friendly. It is a tablet versus the actual system that is mounted. It's mobile, so they can walk around their truck with their tablet and do their DVIRs, their inspections, things like that. If they have accidents, it's easier for them to take photos. Right there from the tablet, everything that you need is on that tablet. Just easier. The functionality, like I said, is a lot easier, but there are additional steps. I know, like, fuel solution is a big one. It's not just there in your face. There are several steps to getting your fuel solution out. It's in its own category. So you do have to go in, request it, and then that request is answered through your messages. It's not just there, boom, there's your fuel solution. That is creating a lot of confusion right now.
So take me through step one. Driver comes to you for training. First step they got to learn is probably the how to log on correctly.
So the login process is a little different. The biggest difference and change is the password and the email address. So it is not just now your driver code. I did try to keep it as uniform as possible, but we did have to add some things because that is it's a new system and that's the requirement. It is now your driver code at decker.com. That is not a accessible email address. That is just for login purposes. And then the password would be the last 6 of the social and then your initials capitalized.
Yeah, and I do use Geotab on the weekends, and when I get out of the truck, I have to log out, and I have to log back in when I get to it. It's a little different. It does take some getting used to. I do highly suggest, this is I just pulled out my little cheat sheet out of my billfold, and I have to use this every single time, or I'm not going to get it because it gives me the right order. I suggest we do this with laminated cards for the drivers. That's my suggestion.
That is a good idea.
Yeah, so that way it's in their billfold or wherever up on their dashboard. That way in the step order. So maybe that's something you could look at doing. It would simplify it for the drivers.
Well, the recipient ID is the very first line, and that has changed also. It is now Deck 1 ELD. Once they put that in, it does not change. It can't be removed. Once you enter it, it's on that tablet. The only thing that will change is for slip seat drivers because they're in and out of the truck. If it is a regular driver, that's his truck, his information and his credentials stays there. Unless he goes into the shop, we do recommend that you log out of the tablet completely, which is a 2-step process. You do have to log out of hours of service and then out of the tablet. If you try to log out of the tablet first, it will not allow you to redirect you to hours of service. So it is additional steps.
So once they get logged into the system, what are some of the steps they need to take after that as far as arrive at receiving?
So as far as loads go, it is available, accepted, in transit, and completed. Those are the 4 options that are available. When they are sent the load, it will be unavailable. They have to acknowledge it. So you see it, you look at it, press OK. It'll move down to accepted. Then the information and the additional information that they need there will be there. They can see that. Once they accept it, then they're in transit. So from in transit, there's all the information there. Then there's a slide bar.
Across the bottom.
So when you arrive at the consignee, you're going to slide it across. So it's a left to right type of thing. Depart from consignee, arrive at shipper, depart from shipper. I think that a lot of confusion comes in with multiple stops.
That's what I was going to ask, because I've never had a multiple stop. So it's fairly simple what I have. And this is a tip. You're going to have to, on your phone, you have to totally delete out the app, I think is a suggested way, isn't it? The Decker TransFlow app. And then go back in and put a new one. If you're going from Qualcomm to Geo, yes, totally delete out your app and then log back in with your new credentials. It can be a little tricky. I think Mary Jo's really good at having guys help set up with that. But one thing I found is it is easier for me than to take my phone, just my phone, and I accept it on my phone and then type in the information, because it's just something for me. It's just easier to type it in on my phone and accept it than it is on the Geotab, which is great, but not for all drivers, just for me.
Well, if drivers are comfortable with the app, they'll be comfortable with the tablet. Everything that is on that app is on that tablet, which is what we went for. We thought it would be a lot easier. My strongest suggestion is, if you are using the app, do not log into hours of service.
Yes, do not.
I can't say that
Point
enough.
one, stressed. Do not log into hours of service.
Do not. It is there. You can see it. Just act like it's not there. It's just going to make your day a lot harder. The communication between the phone and the tablet just aren't meshing, so just don't touch it. Everything else, you can use it. Just don't touch hours of service. Just leave it alone.
Well, I think we had, I don't know if it's still in play, but I think which of the phones was kind of giving us a hiccup when you were trying to put the app on the phone? Android phone? What's it doing?
It's just a communication thing. Android has its own update, and that update is not meshing with McCloud system that we use, which is being currently worked on. It'll work as far as the app goes, just don't touch hours of service.
Okay, all right, okay. Okay, highly stressed, okay. So now, if they want to, let's say they have a multi-pickup or a multi-stop, what do they have to do?
So that is added in. So once you depart shipper and you're on, it'll say first stop, second stop. It's added into it. So it's when you accept that load information, all that transitions into in transit. So it says it on there, first stop, second stop, departing first stop. It's all on the screen.
So then all they got to do is just add in their information for each one and just slide across the bottom whichever way they're going, correct? Okay. Now, what if they want it, like we said, with fuel solution? What do they have to do to get their fuel solution? Because it's not automatically sending them to them, as we said. Fuel compliance guys, we want the scorecard bonus. Mm-hmm. So what do they have to do?
So on the home screen, the home dashboard, it's the gray background. Fuel has its own, I call them tiles. They need to tap on that, and they need to put their current fuel lever, which is by letters. So A, B, C, I think it goes up to F. Mm-hmm. Once they put that in, they just have to put the letter, push send, and their fuel solution will return to them in their messages.
Okay.
They just need to tap on that, and they're good to go.
So what about for lumpers? Any changes for lumper permissions? The add-ons we used to have for different routing lumpers, any of those add-ons that we used to have, anything for that?
Yes. So additional request or expenses, that has its own category as well. It's actually right next to fuel. They just go in, put the amount and what they need, and they would send it just as they would send the fuel solution. So you put in that information, press send, and the answer and the response comes through your messages.
Hours of service then. So let's touch a little base on hours of service. Oh, she's getting excited about that. All right. Woo, that's her specialty. All right. So hours of service. Lay it out.
Some good news. We are adding time to PC.
Woo woo! Everybody out there, cheer. How much time?
Moving from 25 to 50 miles.
Okay.
So we're giving you some extra time there, and it's moving from 30 minutes to 60. So that's a big one. I know that it was kind of difficult because, sometimes you can't find safe parking in that 25-mile radius. So a lot of drivers were going over PC time. With Geotab, that is very different from OmniTrax, is once I set that time, that is Decker's policy. That is Decker's standards. I know that there is a gray area where DOT sees PC, it's very gray. Mm-hmm.
Yes,
but Decker policy is now set for 50 miles, 60 minutes.
Well, that's a lot better. Because if you're in LA and you're in downtown LA, the nearest truck stop is 50 miles away. So you need that time. So
Hometown, I know.
yeah, but even in. I've gone from truck stop to truck stop, and sometimes you could spend quite a lot of time doing that. You may not hit the 50 miles, but you could hit the 1 hour time limit pretty easy trying to find a safe spot. So good. I'm glad to see that we adjusted that, because that is one of the, we got this new Workhound app that we're using, and that is one of the things I hear a lot about is the PC time, and I'm glad I can announce that we're changing that. So when is that effective?
This Sunday at midnight.
All right, cool.
So some drivers will see it as early as today. I have to go in and manually change a lot of them. But the push globally for our whole fleet was done. But the ones that are already currently set to 25, I need to manually change them. So some of them will see them as early as today.
What about the regular hours of service? Any changes on that? How is that working?
I think right now drivers are a little confused with the 8 and 2 split, 7 and 3. They now have the option to change their rule set on their own. I suggest when drivers are not doing that split, they need to change their rule set. So currently, when you change the Geotab, it is automatically set to 70-hour 8-day. When they are doing a split, they need to go in and change it to option B, which is 78-day with split sleeper.
Okay, all right.
If
Nice.
they don't and they leave it on, it can mess up their hours of service, because the system is sometimes thinking that they are trying to do a split and they're not. So they lose hours. It becomes a big old thing. Mm-hmm. So my strongest suggestions to drivers is, if you're not using that split sleeper, take it off. Put it back to its original setting. And they can do that. That
8-2 split to learn how in the 7-3, it's a technique and a challenge for a driver to be able to use that. Yeah. You got to know what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. It is very easy to mess it up.
I tried it probably about 2 years ago. I was going down to Texas and I tried it. I didn't mess it up, but wow, it took a lot of calculating and thinking on my part. And I don't like thinking that hard. I really don't.
That's a big one. I think the exemptions is another one. Yard movement, PC, it's in its own space. It is there, they can see it, but they have to remember that you have to go in and start it. You have to put an annotation. Why are you using PC? What are you doing? When you're done with PC, you do have to press stop.
Okay.
If you don't and you forget, you're going to stay in PC and you can put yourself in violation, or you can put yourself on the drive line and that's not what you wanted. So, they have to be mindful of, I'm done with PC, let me press stop, go back off duty, or, whatever you're doing, but make sure you come out of that function before you go on about your day.
Well, I know on the Qualcomm system, we had drivers that would do it wrong. Are we still having some issues with that on the Geotab?
No, the only thing is now, like I said, it is preset. So if they forget and they keep going, well, you didn't want to be on the drive line, but now you are. So once you hit that 25 miles, if you went 120 miles, after you hit 25 miles, you're on your drive line.
Okay.
And that's a big one right now.
What about the 30-minute break, where they have to take a 30-minute break within 8 hours? So do we have many drivers having an issue where they're taking it too early, do you think? I know for me, I always thought I don't want to take that 30-minute within the first 2 hours or so, because then all of a sudden I got to take another 30-minute before I'm wasting a 30-minute break somewhere, because you got to take it before your 8 hours is up. And so I always thought personally, you want to wait 4 or 5 hours at least to drive time before you take that 30-minute break. Otherwise, you could take a double.
We haven't been having any issues with breaks. Like I said, the biggest thing right now, you do have a few here and there. The biggest thing right now is PC.
What about them missing taking their breaks?
Yes.
See, I knew I'd catch something. Okay.
Yes. But breaks, not too much. Once the drivers really start driving with Geotab, they love it. It's just that first week to 2 weeks that they're just against it. They don't like change. They don't want to do it. It's too hard. But once they hit that second week mark, I find that they're pretty comfortable.
And I know one of the other things that's different is, and I've been hearing this, and I know we're in the works of trying to fix this, is the Geotab does not give you the miles for loaded and empty miles. We are in works of trying to get that added to it, but you can always ask your DM what your loaded and empty miles are, and they can tell you. We are aware of that situation. We are going to try and remedy it.
Yes, they are working on that currently. I don't have a date to when that fix will be available, but they are working on that currently, like now.
Okay. So anything else on hours of service that you want to touch base with drivers out there?
I do want to stress that if you need additional training, it's available. If you have questions, call. Don't, just keep going and, get yourself frustrated. That's what we're here for. Myself, I'm here Monday through Friday. If you need, even after hours, if there's a question that Night Ops doesn't understand or they don't have an answer to, I'm here. Please ask questions. Like I said, it is a learning curve. A lot of drivers are getting frustrated, but we are here to help you guys. Just ask those questions. Call in. I will walk you through it. The safety department, training department, Perry, he's really good at that. If you have a question, you get stuck on something, give us a call. We will help you. If you need additional training, call us. We'll set that up, get you routed in. We're here to help.
Yeah, we've had a lot of drivers that have come in for the additional training because especially guys my age or a little bit older, we're a little bit more technically challenged. So it's taken a little bit more. I know there's quite a few drivers out there still have flip phones, and so they're not quite adept at using the what we have. But yeah, Perry, Ashley, what about Night Ops?
Yeah, they're pretty good down there.
All right. Anything you want to add to Geotab?
No, I think we covered the main areas that our drivers are having problems with. I think we covered it.
What about the cold snap that's coming? Any advice?
Cold snap.
Yeah, it's supposed to be like minus 20 here coming up this coming
I'm
weekend.
From Cali. I'm just going to bundle up.
You're just going to bundle
I don't
up?
have any advice on that.
Drivers, additive. Dress warm, be prepared. We're having a heck of a cold snap that's going to be hitting here starting Saturday. They're talking negative 20 below. And so my advice to you is be prepared because it's coming. We have a little bit of today we're having a little bit of a snowstorm going here, had a little ice storm. I talked to a driver just before I came up here, and he's out in Nebraska, and he said the roads are horrible out there. They had a layer of ice on top and now snow, and the wind's blowing like crazy. So guys, be very, very careful out there. So remember, keep the shiny side up. As always, thank you for listening to Inside the Triangle. Don't forget to subscribe to us on whatever platform you're listening on. That way you will know when the new episodes drop. And remember, submit your questions to podcast@deckermail.com and you could be featured on one of our upcoming episodes. The best way to do this is to create a voice memo on your smartphone, record your question, and email it to podcast@deckermail.com. Once again, thank you for listening. Stay driven to be the best.
Inside the Triangle, the Decker Truckline Podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Inside the Triangle. I am your host, Darren Ladley, and today we are going to do part 2 of Geotab Talk. We are going to talk today about the manual that we have put out, where you can find it, how to use it, and what is in it. And I have Jason Sorleen from Missoula. He's out there in that great, wonderful state. How much snow did you get the other day?
I have a total of 17 inches of snow in my yard. We went from green grass to 17 inches in 48 hours.
Nothing like living in the valley, right?
Yeah, but just north of Missoula got 39 inches in 24 hours.
Oh, crap. No thanks. I mean, I guess when I woke up this morning, it was minus 18 here. So I don't know which is worse. But let's start off. So we wanted to talk about Jason, you and who worked with you on creating this manual?
Dave Chapman and Tanner and Elaine, a few of the people, Barry Nelson in the training department. They went through and they got a lot of the photos of the screenshots of the tablet, the screens, various screens through, whether it's the dispatch process or messaging or whatever, logging hours service. They already did some of the legwork for me for those images. I just grabbed those images and then just ran with it, with building the booklet and the web presence, the document.
So, I mean, basically you're covering everything from A to Z on step one to this process all the way to the end, correct?
Yeah, there's a couple addendums that are going to come out, or appendix that'll come out with in regards to driver scorecard through the tablet or smart drive through the tablet. He's got to work on those still.
So where can they find this manual at?
So if you have the red Decker branded Transflow app, in the top right-hand corner, there looks like 9 little boxes, like you're looking at a window pane.
Okay, well,
click those 9 boxes.
As you're talking, I'm going to open it up. So go ahead.
So you click those little boxes.
Okay.
And about halfway down on the right, there's a big red square. It says Decker Geotab Transflow Help.
Yep. Okay.
You click that, and it opens up the manual I built in a PDF format. You just scroll down through. There's a table of contents. Tells you which page to go to. Like if you want to add an asset or change your asset, so changing a trailer number, it tells you to go to, it refers to that in page 10 and 31. If you need to go into hours of service for the logins, page 5, edited duty status is page 23, and it takes you through step by step when you go to each page.
Yeah, I'm looking here, and I mean, you're dead on. I mean, yeah, I'm following. I'm scrolling along down it. It's point 1, point 2, step 2, all the way through. No, this is very well laid out. You guys did an awesome job.
So the thing is, if you look at the top left corner as you're scrolling, it's say 1 of 64, 2 of 64.
Yep.
That's just the pages of the PDF document. That doesn't correspond with the page number of the booklet. You'll see the page number in the booklet either on the bottom right or the bottom left. If they alternate back and forth, because if you have a printed copy, it actually looks like a book.
Okay.
That way you can bounce between everything. Going down through, it takes you step by step on how to go through the whole process. Like, for example, if you're doing hours of service and you're in the set, you want to know about the status tabs on page 17, for example, it has little arrows pointing to your status tab, your logs tab, the time you have left remaining in the day, the circles with little arrows down for notes, where to find your 8, 11, 14 and your 70, how to change your duty status, where to find your exemptions for personal conveyance or yard move or this time of year adverse driving conditions. But it goes through this all step by step and it helps you through the entire process.
So what are some of the biggest issues you've been seeing with drivers are having?
With technical issues with the tablet, drivers saying that it'll like kick them out or it'll have like a hiccup. The one thing I tell them is like, okay, or ask them, when was the last time you did a reset on it? They should be doing a reset on that tablet at least once a week. Anytime I train a driver, I tell them Sunday night, just do the reset on it. You push and hold the power button, which you can see on page 1, because it tells you where to locate that. And by pushing and holding the power button, it brings up a red icon and a green icon. Red's for power off and green's for restart. Just hit that restart twice, and it'll just do a reset on your tablet. Just like your cell phone. You should be doing that on your cell phone at least once a week. That way it'll trigger for updates and start running a little bit more smooth.
And I know we talked earlier today, and I know Ashley, I talked when she was on here too, was do not log into your hours of service on your phone. Use the tablet. Please do not use your phone, correct?
Correct. Yeah. Some phone manufacturers, and they're all Android, but there's some of them out there that have issues, whether it's an LG or the Google Pixel Plus or whatever it's called. If you're actually in that hours of service portion on the phone, it makes the app think that your phone is the ELD device. And a couple drivers that actually disabled their ability to make phone calls, receive phone calls, or text messages. So their phone was dead in the water unless they actually did a reset, powered it back up, uninstalled the app, reinstalled it, logged in properly, and did not log in hours of service.
Okay, wow. Yeah, that would that would create a little bit of turmoil, a little bit of upset drivers. I guess that happened a lot. So yeah, guys, remember, do not do that. Okay.
Or upset spouses when they can't get hold of their spouse because they logged into hours of service on their phone.
I know some drivers that would be happy that they couldn't get a hold of their spouse. So what other features do you have going on with Geotab?
Like I said, we built this book, and some drivers have been trained using the book. I give them the book to reference while they're in training. If it's remote training in Missoula or Bessemer, they can look through it. There are some drivers that still have flip phones, and I respect that. It's just some people don't want a smartphone. So those drivers, because they won't be able to access the app, we have printed some copies and won't give them to the drivers that have flip phones, because it's a 64-page booklet and it is expensive to print it over and over and over again. If we printed 700 copies, it'd be pretty spendy.
Yes, it would. So I know out in Missoula, you're doing the Geotab training out there, correct?
If a scheduled time isn't available with Perry to do it through a Teams meeting, because I have the old orientation room set up as a classroom for Geotab, where there's a camera in there. We log in through Teams so they can see Perry can see them. He can share what's on the screen, and they can walk each other through what they're experiencing. If those times aren't available, then I will do a one-on-one, or if it's a last-minute emergency type situation, I will do a one-on-one. We also have Matt McConaughey available as a last-ditch effort.
Now, do you know, and you may not know this, but Bessemer, is that how they're doing their training down there too? Are they doing it through Teams with Perry?
They are. I think Gerard and Jeremy are kind of the backups. I think they have one other person, might be Isaiah, I'm not sure.
So I know with Ashley, I think we were about 40%, I believe is what we said we're installed somewhere in that area there. So drivers, we are continuing to update and get all this equipment put in. It's going to take a little bit of time. I believe she said March was our goal to have it in. Is that correct?
I think she said April, actually.
April? Okay. So we're marching that way through to that time, so it shouldn't be too much longer. I think once everybody gets on it, we got to learn what the hiccups are so we can get them fixed, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. Yes, that's correct. We're going to have some hiccups. Anytime you have any change or technology advancements, there's going to be hiccups. It's a learning curve. Bear with us. We'll get through it together. There's going to be some updates coming out sometime in the first quarter that'll fix the appointment window times, where it'll show the beginning and the end of the window. It'll show temperature settings. It'll show
miles.
I guess miles is another one. Receiving the fuel solution upon dispatch, so the driver's not having to request it every time. There's a bunch of little things that are very important little things, but we're just trying to work through them. And our IT department's been working with Transflow, Geotab, and getting this squared away.
So do you think this will end up with, because it's a tablet basically, and it's through cellular service, Verizon, do you see this being like my iPhone, where I get an update, an iOS 18.2 or whatever it is that's coming out, and that's what's going to happen with the tablet, and they'll just do it that way?
Most likely. The nice thing about it being a tablet base is that if something should happen, it's easier to swap out. We don't have to have a lot of downtime in the shop, ripping the tablet out, putting a new one in like we did with the Qualcomm. It's a matter of just dropping a new one onto the cradle and calling it good and just pairing it up to the truck. It's a smoother process, and the processes with the tablet will move a lot smoother than the Omnitrax units, the IVGs. There may be a truck out there with the CP200 as well, but these don't freeze up like the Omnitrax units did. They're a lot easier to walk through the processes with. I know I've had numerous phone calls after hours on the weekends, even when I was on time off and traveling for just a little mini vacation, talking drivers through how to get their loaded calls done, their arrivals, and their empty calls. The one thing I do want to mention about those arrival and departure calls, one thing to keep in mind, because on the podcast with Ashley, you guys were talking about you swipe to send it.
Yep.
To start that process. Keep in mind that when you're arriving, it's going to be a blue arrow, you swipe to the right. Mm-hmm. When it's a departure, it's going to be a red arrow, you swipe to the left.
Yep.
The red arrow always means that you're going to have to put additional fields and get those filled in, whether it's case counts or weights or temperatures or whatever it may be. You're going to have to keep that in mind. A lot of drivers, they forget that little aspect of it, and like, they won't let me send this departure call through, and just walking through it real quick, and then boom, they're on the road.
Well, that's really no different than the OmniTrax, because I mean, if you didn't put in your fuel level, or you didn't put in your driver unload, did driver unload, did require, I mean, it wouldn't let you move on to the next thing. So that's not too much of a change. They should be, pretty familiar with that.
Yeah, it is. And there have been a couple hiccups that we've seen in the loads app, or as actually referred to them as tiles on the main dashboard, where it tells you load available, accepted, in progress. One thing that we found is that process doesn't update as frequently as it should. Just depends on coverage area where you're at. I had a driver come in here where it said that they were still in progress on a load, and that was 4 loads ago. If your tablet does give that little hiccup, just keep in mind, going through that tile is just the extra step way of just going down to your alerts button down at the bottom of the dashboard. It looks like a bell. If you go right to that bell, you're just skipping a step, and it takes you right in there faster. That's the same location you find your scan confirmations as well.
Okay. So now they can, so it's simple to find their scan confirmation numbers then, correct?
Correct.
And I know we are changing up the trip sheets. They will be changed here. Probably should see the new ones in maybe a month or so. And Jason had an awesome idea on the bottom of it. We're going to have a spot where you can put the confirmation number on there as soon as you receive it. So that way, if a driver ever does have a question and they need to look it up, because a lot of times we have to have that confirmation number, look it up, it's right there on the trip sheet. So it should simplify it a lot and make it easier for both payroll and the driver.
Exactly. That way a driver's not having to search for that confirmation. As soon as they receive it, they just write it down, and then that trip's done.
Awesome. Anything else you want to add on this blustery cold day?
It's warmer here in Missoula, but we're supposed to get a little cold snap here in the next couple of days. Only a low of -10, but just like you said before, and we can't say it enough, treat your fuel before you pump the fuel.
Yeah.
Put in your anti-gel before you pump it. That way it'll mix properly. The terminal fuel in Missoula is pre-treated, but still treat your fuel.
Yeah, same thing here. I mean, the fuel is treated here, but when you're hitting -18, -20 degrees, you've got to put the extra precaution to it. Even this morning, Tanner was coming in, his pickup gelled up on him, and Tanner says, I watch it and I watch it and I watch it. He says, it was bad. And so I've seen some pictures of some guys, one guy driver sent it in on Workhound, where basically you saw it too, didn't you, Jason, where, I mean, looked like a chunk of ice in the top of his and he treated it. It's just, that's how cold it is. So be very, very careful.
I had a driver here in Missoula, same situation. Treated his fuel in Billings, Montana yesterday. Got cold last night, made it into Missoula, and he got really sluggish. Pulled it in the shop, and he was starting to gel up.
Yeah, this is not ideal weather. Keep yourself protected too, not only your fuel. It doesn't take long, and all of a sudden, if you're out on the elements, just checking your tire, opening the doors or whatever, it doesn't take long to freeze a finger, freeze a nose, or anything like that. Make sure you're wearing protective, warm clothing. And
some drivers that live in southern states that don't typically make it into the northern states, or they're new to the company and they didn't really pack appropriately for the weather that we're experiencing, not knowing it. The company stores, we have stocking caps. We have summer gloves and winter gloves that are lined that way they can get. And in orientation, they get a pair of wool socks. And we have heavy jackets. Just if you need something, you can check out the company store. Or if you're at a terminal, get one of the company cars, run down to Walmart, Target, somewhere and get some items. Make sure you have that. Make sure you're prepared with bottled water in the truck, extra blankets, whatever, because if your fuel gels up, your bunk heater's going out too.
Yep. So be safe out there, guys, and remember, keep the shiny side up. Thanks, Jason. Talk to you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye. As always, thank you for listening to Inside the Triangle. Don't forget to subscribe to us on whatever platform you're listening on. That way you will know when the new episodes drop. And remember, submit your questions to podcast@deckermail.com, and you could be featured on one of our upcoming episodes. The best way to do this is to create a voice memo on your smartphone, record your question, and email it to podcast@deckermail.com. Once again, thank you for listening. Stay driven to be the best.